Dan the Art Man's Book Reviews, Episode 84, Keeper of the Lost Cities by Shannon Messenger. I really enjoyed this book. I read it because all my kids have been devouring the series. There were a few reasons I liked this book, and a few reasons I didn't give it 5 stars. Side note, I gave it 4 out of 5. I thought the story world was awesome. I've always loved the idea of characters who are, slight spoiler, ancient. I also love the whole idea behind the lost cities, and I love the urban fantasy trope of our normal world, but there are other worlds we normal people just don't know about. Super cool. That said, there were a few things that heavily reminded me of Harry Potter, but I'd say in comparison, this book has way less depth when it comes both to the individual characters and the story world. They're still great, but I did get bored a few times while the character was, slight spoiler, getting through school. Okay, all that to say I'm a 38-year-old and not the target audience for this book, so I think most readers will love those chapters because they're very relatable to you if you're still in school. And now as I'm reading this review, years later, I'm 42. I have also heard that as you keep reading the books in this series, they get even better, so I have great hopes as I continue on to the next one. It's also really fun talking about books with my kids, and this series is one they are all excited about, so I'm thankful to share that with them. Update, more of my kids have started reading these books, so I reread the first one and am making my way through the series. I'm only on the second one as I wrote this, but I have a little more to say about this book. One way in which this book stands out to me is that it is just so easy and entertaining to read. For a supposed middle grade novel, which a lot of that has to do with the age of the protagonist, this is a very long book, but it doesn't feel long. It's just such an easy and fun story to dip into, and before you know it, you've finished the book. There is more to it than that. The author does a good job of pulling you through the story, and at least for me, making me think about it a little when I wasn't reading it, because I wanted to know more about the story and where it was going. There are some great mysteries that you want to discover by reading more, and I think it's great that you're discovering all of this and the wonder of the new world along with the main character. It's nothing new, but this is a story technique that has been done before because it works so well, and I really like it. It's really fun to learn about a weird, fantastical world at the same time the protagonist is. I've also read a few reviews by people who felt some of the characters' emotions weren't very realistic, but I think it may just be the case that those readers weren't the target audience. I thought the emotions of the characters dealing with loss and change came across as authentic. I'm also not the target audience, but this book was so enjoyable and fun, like a bubblegum fantasy novel, if that's a descriptor, that as a now 41-year-old dude, my 13-year-old son and I are really enjoying these books alongside my daughters. The draw might be stronger for them, as they are a similar age to Sophie the protagonist, and it is a book written by a woman with female sensibilities. But her writing does a great job of pulling in those beyond her target audience. And still, as a guy, this book was great. I think that's what many great stories do. Pull in people beyond their target audience. When you tell someone you liked a book despite it being in a genre you're not super interested in or don't normally read, I think the author has done something special there. I'd say that is true of this book. I look forward to the rest of the series as well because I've heard from my kids and other reviews that they get much more interesting and less like other fantasy stories. Cool. All right, a few more things to share. I think I would really recommend it to people who have kids who might have read the Percy Jackson series and the Harry Potter series, and they're looking for more books to read that are in that vein. If that's you or your kids, or a friend you know, I highly recommend this series. And I say that because I've been using almost all of my Audible credits over like the last year to keep getting the next book in this series for my daughters. And my two sons read through at least one of them, at least half or most of the series in paperback form before we moved to Guatemala and got rid of most of our books. We're moving back soon, and I intend to go to thrift stores and look for gems because I know this awesome place with a huge selection of books for like $1 to $3 each. It's awesome. When we were visiting the States last summer, I picked up like 6 or 7 paperback books there because I have come to realize how much I truly enjoy reading a paperback book, even though with my schedule and lifestyle, I do most of my reading through audiobooks. That's something else that's really cool. One of my daughters has dyslexia, so she really struggles to read, and we're reading through the Magic Treehouse books, and now she's the one reading through them out loud to us, and she's doing better and better, but she can listen and comprehend so well when she's listening to audiobooks, and she's listened to the whole series that's currently available in The Keeper of the Lost Cities by Shannon Messenger. I think maybe 3 times now. She's also listened to a super long collection of Anne of Green Gables books, which probably had harder diction or bigger words and a story that was more, hard to digest for someone of this day and age, especially as she was like 10 when she listened to those. But she loved them. She was enthralled. She's like, "Dad, when the series started, Anne of Green Gables was a little girl, and now in the book she like has her own kids," and it was just amazing. So all that to say, my kids, especially my daughters, really have enjoyed both reading this series in paperback and also listening to the audiobook series. I'll hear them listening on their Echo Dots to the series all over again. So that's my recommendation for you guys. In the next episode, I'll be reviewing an incredible book. It's like maybe a modern literary fiction book. It's called Purple Hibiscus. And it's one of the best books I've ever read in the ways that it's able to do some things so well. It was so beautifully written. Anyways, from young adult or even middle grade fantasy to literary fiction, we're going to make a shift for the next episode, as I like to do. In the meantime, happy reading, and we'll see you next time.
This podcast is brought to you by DanDanTheArtman.com, where you can find more book reviews, entries on Dan's writing journey, and links to purchase Dan's books, like Haunted House Flipper or The Case of the Missing Snowman. Music by Dan Absalonson.